Bryan Kohberger refuses to enter a plea in court today, so the court does it for him. Dads sometimes have to give this advice. Lori Vallow picks up some new cases, and then our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it. Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. Yes, it seems like it's been an eternity, but it was only 4 days. My trial has been resolved, and so we are back. We'll talk about that maybe more on our live show tomorrow night. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do, leave me a comment below, and hit that little bell for notifications. And remember, you can listen to us anytime on any of your favorite podcasting apps. And yes, it's also been a while as well. Please go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up for that background subscription service today. And I can tell you, I had somebody contact me the other night at, 10 o'clock, a client, somebody had gotten in trouble, and we couldn't get in touch with the investigator. So what did we do? We went to crimetalksearch.com, pulled up my subscription, and found what we were looking for. I tell you, we use this stuff on a daily basis. You'll be happy that you did when you sign up, because you'll be able to do as many background searches as you like. And remember, you can cancel at any time. People are coming into your life. In today's world, trust but verify. That's what it comes down to. Trust them that they're telling you the truth, but verify that they're not on one of those public records, if you know what I mean. Are they telling you the truth about their criminal history? Do they have judgments, liens against them? Check them out to make sure they're not lying to you. Let's get to the docket. Today is May 22nd, 2023. So let's go ahead and open the record. Well, Bryan Kohberger. Well, how can I say this? This guy's just getting a little more creepy as things go along. Obviously, we're going to give him the presumption of innocence. And last week we weren't able to talk about it because I was in trial. But that's right, Bryan Kohberger was indicted. What's the difference between a complaint and information? Complaint and information, the district attorney signs it, says that it is true, that they believe the allegations are true, and the probable cause exists. The judge kind of gives it the rubber stamp. There you go. You've got a case. The defendant is then entitled to a preliminary hearing. Well, a defendant can also be indicted. Sometimes an indictment cannot be easily had, particularly in smaller jurisdictions. They have to assemble the grand jury. And when they do that, and a true bill is returned in an indictment, that means that the defendant no longer gets his preliminary hearing. So that court date in the end of June for Bryan Kohberger, not going to happen. So nothing too surprising. The indictment is exactly the same as the complaint and information. Count 1, burglary, alleges that Bryan Kohberger, on or about November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, did unlawfully, which means without legal permission or justification, entered the residence located at 1122 King Road, Moscow, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder. Count 2, Bryan Kohberger did deliberately, with premeditation and with malice aforethought, did kill and murder Madison Mogan. Count 3, same thing, murder Kaylee Gonsalves. Count 4, murder in the first degree, Zana Kernodle. Count 5, murder in the first degree, Ethan Chapin. All of which is contrary to the form, force, and effect of the statute in such case, made and provided, and against the peace and dignity of the state of Idaho. So what that means is that Bryan Kohberger needs to be brought before the court as expeditiously as possible. He was brought before the court today, where he's supposed to enter a plea. Say, not guilty. Well, guess what? The man accused of those 4 deaths stood silent. According to his attorney, they intended to do that, which is kind of odd in my humble opinion. But the reality of it is that now the speedy trial begins. A couple things of great significance here. The prosecutor now has 60 days in which to file a notice that they're going to seek the death penalty or whether they're not going to seek the death penalty. Additionally, the state now has 6 months from today's date to get Mr. Kohberger to trial. Now, obviously, Mr. Kohberger can, in fact, waive speedy trial, but frankly, I just don't see how that helps him in any way whatsoever. The evidence is what it is. If not, go try the case if it's not going to get any better. Kohberger appeared with his defense attorney, Ann Taylor, and they told the judge that they were going to stand silent at this time. So the court then said, fine, then I will enter not guilty pleas on Mr. Kohberger's behalf. He did decline to waive his right to a speedy trial. And so the trial is scheduled to begin October 2nd of 2023, which will be here in no time. Now, the trial is expected to last 6 weeks. Now, I understand district attorneys always take longer and they estimate longer because they don't want to run out of time that the court allotted. I just don't see this taking 6 weeks to do this trial. But we'll have to wait and see if it, in fact, is going to take 6 weeks. And for those who aren't familiar, obviously Kohberger was a graduate student studying criminology at the nearby Washington State University when the University of Idaho students were killed. But prosecutors have not released much information about how they believe Kohberger may have chosen the victims or whether they had met previously. Police released few details about the investigation until Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home in East Pennsylvania back on December 30th of 2022. And court documents have detailed how police pieced together DNA evidence, cell phone data, and surveillance video that they say links Kohberger to the slayings. Investigators said that they found traces of DNA on a knife sheath inside the home where the students were killed that matched Kohberger, and a cell phone belonging to Kohberger was near the victim's home on a dozen occasions before the killings. And a white sedan was that allegedly matches the one owned by Kohberger was caught on surveillance footage repeatedly cruising past the rental house around the same time of the killings. Now remember, they have cell phone records that apparently this phone was off, but it turned back on, which would have been about the same time for him to drive back to Washington. But the damning evidence was apparently there's a little DNA on this sheath, right? This is the K-bar. This is what it looks like. This is the sheath that it comes in. Every Marine that's ever, as far as I've ever known, had a K-bar. But every Marine has them just because of the tradition of the Marine Corps. They were big back in World War II. But look what happens when you hit the tab there. Ooh, guess right. Your DNA could transfer right there on the little tab. Ooh, don't you just hate that pesky DNA? It's tough to explain why your DNA was found in a knife sheath that allegedly matches maybe a weapon used in the crime scene. Now, we'll give you the presumption of innocence, but your attorney's going to have some work to do. Now, the courtroom was apparently packed today, most of it being members of the media, and we'll have to see whether these proceedings will require a change of venue and whether that change of venue will take place rather early in the proceedings or if we're going to have to wait till the very end as we did in the Lori Vallow trial. Now, here's some stuff that came out last week in the news as well. And there's a report that says that Bryan Kohberger allegedly broke into a woman's home before the Idaho murders took place. And like I said, this is some sort of creepy, weird thing. And it was stuff around an attempt to make her fear for her life. Now, this somewhat unusual claim came out in an episode of NBC's Dateline, and it alleges that Kohberger became friends with a girl at the Washington State University where he was enrolled, just months before the fatal Idaho stabbings there at the university. And it's alleged he allegedly snuck into her place and moved her belongings in order to make her feel uneasy in her own home. Now, this little event, I guess, if you want to call it that, allegedly worked because Dateline is saying that she asked him to help set up a security camera as a result, something he could have later checked out remotely after learning her Wi-Fi password. Weird, to say the least. I don't know. Just me. Doesn't the guy just look a little weird and creepy in his little jail garb there? Not looking so confident today, did he, in court? So we'll give Bryan Kohberger the presumption of innocence. We'll see how things work out for him. But at least we're moving forward. And hopefully we're going to be able to see cameras in the courtroom. I know there was a hearing regarding the cameras in the courtroom, but I am not aware of the results just yet. And, I wasn't even supposed to be in the office today. Thank goodness I had a tie because I got a call today because the United States attorney on a case was supposed to notify me that they were going to arrest my client, or we would surrender the client instead of having him be arrested. And I get a call today saying, no, your client's been arrested. And 20 minutes after I find that out from the courts, the U.S. attorney's like, hey, your guy's in custody. I'm like, hey, thanks. Insert word. I appreciate all the heads up. Anyway, you wonder why you don't trust people in the government. It's stuff like that. It's not a political thing. It's just, you just don't trust them. It's just the way it is. All right, next on the docket. Sometimes a kid just needs to hear these words from her dad, okay? Do you remember the case of Jamie Lee Komorski? She is the woman that hit a bride and groom, and the groom was severely injured, and the bride passed away. And this is literally during the end of the ceremony, right? Well, she has some phone calls have been released to her friends and family that were made. And yeah, it's kind of interesting. So she's in the Charleston County Jail there in South Carolina, and the records request was made and the phone calls have been released. Well, Komorski had a BAC level 3 times higher than the legal limit when on April 28th, she crashed her Toyota Camry into the newlyweds, Samantha Miller and Eric Hutchinson, killing the bride and injuring the groom. 2 days later, a call with her parents, she was crying, saying, quote, oh my God, I just can't believe this has happened to me. Why me? I'm going to be here for years and years and years. I can't believe this is my life. My whole life is going to be over, she added. Her father said, I like this. Her father tried to console her, but also told her firmly that it was time to suck it up and get tough. She replied, I can't. I want it to be over. Komorski's father also told her that she would have to get used to life in jail, that she could become a better person, but was going to have to do the time. In another conversation, Komorski explained that the media interest was making her uncomfortable and asked her father why her case was being so widely covered. Well, Dad responded, that just makes me scared that the media is so involved in it, she said. Why are they so involved? Dad says, because it sells newspapers. That's why. But that's not going to help me, she said. Like, oh my God, it's going to be so bad when I get out. Everyone's going to be so mean to me. Now, she did express some remorse and told her boyfriend and a small group of friends that she didn't want to be perceived negatively and predicted quite optimistically that she would be free on bail within the next 2 months. In the interim, though, she was going to read some books and listen to some history and science podcasts. She says, quote, I'm going to be a genius when I get out. Well, there you have it. But the reason I brought you that story is not because we bring any pleasure talking about this young woman in custody. No, we're not. But her BAC was 3 times over the legal limit. And I like her dad saying now it's time to toughen it up and deal with it. You're going to do some time. Maybe you can come out better on the other end. Like, I don't know, sober, perhaps? Just saying. But I like when parents say that stuff. Sometimes I have to tell parents, you want to help your kid? Keep them in custody. Let them get a grasp of their new reality. Ms. Komorski, her new reality is jail and probably prison. There's a dead body. Someone's got to go to prison. That's usually the way it works. You know who's also learning to come to grips with her new reality? Lori Vallow. That's right. Everybody knows by now Lori Vallow was facing separate felony charges in Arizona after a grand jury indicted her in 2021 on a charge of conspiring to kill her 4th husband. Now, according to prosecutor's office in the Maricopa County there in Arizona, the second indictment in Arizona, which was unsealed this month, involves conspiring to kill her niece's ex-husband, Brandon Boudreaux. Police allege that Vallow's brother, Alex Cox, shot and killed Charles Vallow in July of 2019 and shot at Boudreaux in October 2019 and fortunately missed, but that's still attempted murder. And obviously in Lori Vallow's trial a couple weeks ago, prosecutors argued that Vallow used sex and power to manipulate her brother and husband into carrying out these alleged crimes. The case involved graphic details of police finding her children's bodies and claims that she called them zombies and saw herself as a sexual goddess in a biblical apocalypse. Now, Lori Vallow faces obviously life in prison for killing her children and Chad Daybell's wife, Tammy. and she's looking to spend the rest of her life there. Her new reality. Get used to it. Now, Chad obviously is still awaiting a trial date being set, but his attorney, John Pryor, doesn't want that trial date set until next year. Really? Go try the case. That's what I'm telling you. Take a look at this Ohio woman. She's been charged with desecration after she allegedly defecated on a church altar, according to police reports. Now, according to the criminal complaint, Laura Menard went into the chapel at Cincinnati's Good Samaritan House on Saturday and defecated on the altar. Yeah, but Menard allegedly used a fabric runner on the altar to then wipe herself. Menard, who lives in Cincinnati, then took a picture of the chapel and smeared feces on the table of the altar. Menard was arrested for the desecration charge that we talked about and place of worship and booked into the county jail on a felony count. No motive has been released as it relates to the desecration, but I'm sure it's not a good one. Anyway, while bonds for Miss Menard was initially set at $25,000, it appears she has been released on a bond with her own recognizance, which means she doesn't have to pay anything. She appears in court again on May 25th. Now, Miss Menard, I don't know what you were doing. I don't know. Maybe you had some stomach pain. It happened right there. Somehow, I just don't think that's the case. And here's the beautiful thing about our country is the First Amendment relies upon the freedom of religion. Nobody's going to force it upon you. And guess what? If you don't believe with that religion, you don't get to go tell somebody that you don't like their religion by defecating on their altar. That's not very First Amendment-like, is it now? No. In fact, it's downright criminal. Maybe this should be determined to be a hate crime of some type. You just don't do that to other people's stuff. And the fact that it's a church and you don't like the church, my guess is, shame on you. All right, that's all we have for you today. It's good to be back. Try to get back into a routine here. Sorry. Sometimes things just come up in the practice of law, like trials. When you actually have to go do trials, it's exhausting. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk.